Good morning. Good morning. Hopefully everybody's in. As usual, we always do a little bit of a sound check just to see if everybody can hear us well and see us well. Down there at the bottom somewhere is a chat box. So for the people who are in, can you please leave a message, whether we're loud and clear and everybody can see us? And usually the first question we get in the chat box is because we're running off a presentation is can we get the slides? And the answer is always yes. So if you stick around until the end of this webinar, you'll get the slides as a downloadable. Without further ado, let's get started. So welcome to this new webinar we're running on how to supercharge your strategy development and execution with AI-driven data. We're continuing our series of webinars in which we share best practices and insights on realizing growth. And recently, more and more of these webinars revolve around the use of AI. So that's, I think that's very, very topical at this point. By the way, if you want to rewatch some of our previous webinars, you can go to our website. We have like an on-demand or section there, which you can actually you cannot download, but you can watch our webinars on our website. And I think Rob will have the link ready for you in the chat in a little while. So if you want to do that, then feel free to rewatch those webinars. Also, and this is in true RevelX fashion, we always share a lot of resources. On our website, we have a link which is called the Growth Warehouse. And you can find a lot of stuff for download. And apart from webinars and downloads, we also we've done a few podcasts, for example, on how to run an innovation studio, Blue Labs for KLM. Also, we have a discussion with Michael Stielger, who's the founder of Q Markets, on the use of software for the innovation process. And we have an interview with the Ministry of Health and the Dutch Olympic Committee. Again, given the Olympic cycle we're in, very topical about innovation in sports and in general. So again, if you want to get that stuff, go to our website, revelx.co/warehouse, and you can download all of that stuff. And please let us know whether you'd like that. We run all these things for you, so your feedback is highly appreciated. To today's webinar, let me introduce our speakers. For the ones who've been joining our websites or our webinars previously, you might know me. My name is Matthijs Hosman. I'm a partner at RevelX. We specialize in strategy formulation and execution and innovation strategy and management. And today I'm joined by Julia Rohring from our partner Trendata. We're working with Trendata to infuse our strategy development and execution work with AI-driven real-time intelligence and specifically in how customer demand is shaping. We'll talk a little bit more about how that's important for you for your strategy. And where our markets are moving. So that's I think that's very interesting to talk about today. But maybe, Julia, you want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Thank you. So hello, everyone. I am Julia, and I work for Trendata as a data and sales consultant, focusing on market intelligence and insights. And for the past 4.5 years, I've helped leadership teams make really good choices by picking up market signals and make AI-driven decisions for strategy and execution. We have worked together with like Brabantia, Dunlop, Just Brands, brands like that. And we are going to talk about a lot of market insights today. So thank you for introducing me.
Yeah, great. No, thank you for being here. And I think it's very interesting to hear from you guys on how you deal with AI-driven data, specifically in the strategy space, and also to learn from all of the experience that you have working with all of these brands. Mm-hmm. So for today, on today's agenda, we have first of all, we'll talk about how this fits into the strategy agenda, as we see that it doesn't really, the traditional strategy execution or development execution process doesn't really fit today's reality anymore. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how AI-driven real-time intelligence changes all of that. So how that impacts the
Sure.
strategy decision making, and also how to get started without disrupting your organization. And we'll also tie it a little bit back into the webinar we've done in September of last year, in which we talked about conversational strategy. So how strategy is becoming much more of a let's say, with the power of AI, much more of a living thing rather than a static document or a process that organizations employ.
Yeah.
Again, I see a couple of you have found the chat bar already. Please, put your questions in the chat. I think that'll help you get the most out of this webinar, and also helps us, address the most important things for you. So we do these things for you. So let's make sure that we get the most out of it for everybody. Okay, let's dive in. Now, if we look a little bit about sort of the challenges that organizations face, specifically when it comes to the strategy process, we see in our practice that more and more organizations see that strategy, or the traditional strategy process, doesn't really fit today's environment anymore. It was more and more designed for a more stable environment in which we deal with annual planning cycles, sort of a linear execution path. Dealing with predictable markets, with predictable clients, and we see that that doesn't really work anymore. We see that it doesn't really fit with the strategy cycle. We see obviously a lot of geopolitical shifts in many markets, hitting our clients' businesses at an unprecedented pace. We see a lot of disruption in many industries, and well, we're talking about AI this morning. AI changes everything when it comes to how you deal with business, and so a lot of leaders are sort of puzzled about how do we deal with all of these things? How do we align sort of the strategy development process with strategy execution, and how do we manage the tension that sort of arises when it comes to that?
Yeah, and what we also see with a lot of companies, that they really know that disruptions exist, but that they don't know how to navigate these disruptions, and what to do with these disruptions. So we see that too.
Exactly. So getting to a strategy is one, but then executing it on the other end is another. As it is topical, it's not really new in that sense. We've been working with this for a long time already, and so at RevelX we found an approach in how we can make strategy much more of an agile process. So which basically revolves around, okay, so let's look at strategy from developing like a core strategic thesis, and then incorporating signals and trends and scenarios into that strategic action plan to make that work. Actually, we've ran a live workshop with one of our other partners, Q Markets, in last year in Belgium, in Ghent, because we're working with them to also build a signals platform, which can work really well. So and we have a lot of things on our website as well, so if you're interested. But just getting back to how we deal with this in practice, we work off what we call our growth strategy canvas, which really embodies that thinking around having a core strategic idea, very quickly turn that core thesis into a workable strategic action plan. Staying close to having, let's say, a clear strategy, but then also staying responsive to what's happening around you. Rob has made this available for you as a download. So if you want to use that for your organization, we are more than happy to. And by the way, we also have, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. We have an AI-driven version of this canvas, but we'll stick to that in a little bit later in this webinar. So. When it comes to sort of defining your strategy, and this steered the discussion a little bit towards the topic of data and trend data specific offering in this sense, is that we also see that a huge part of defining your strategy has to do with being open to external trends, right? So where are the opportunities in your markets? And so these trends really revolve around, so what are the disruptive forces in my industry and for my company? Where does, where do customer future needs evolve into? What are competitive developments that we need to keep tabs on? And what kind of market opportunities does that
And I think it's not just
offer?
only about finding opportunities and see what the customer needs are, but also really about knowing what the challenges are in the market, and make sure that the risk of these challenges not become not to have too big of an impact on your organization. So it's not just about finding opportunities, but also look at these challenges.
And how can you make these actionable, right? So that's So another thing which is sort of alarming to us is that when we're working with our clients, is that we often see a sort of a limited external orientation, right? So there's a lot of internal bias within our clients' leadership, or actually organizations at large. They limit, and that limits sort of the full visibility of how their industries are about to be disrupted, where customer needs are evolving, and what competition is doing in that sense. And specifically, like you were just saying, is how does that create a challenge for you as an organization whilst you're trying to grow, right? And capture these opportunities. So that over reliance in sometimes outdated sources of information and sort of hardwired myths and beliefs really are problematic in that sense. And what we see at play is that organizations typically have a problem sort of keeping up with the speed of how things are developing, right? So trends form and scale faster than ever. I guess you see that in your industry as well.
A lot of companies is that they don't have an idea. They know that their market is changing, but they have no idea how fast that market is changing. Like we have, of course, a lot of developments in the market. Think about social media. Think about search engines, like way back when they became developed. And now with all the AI environments, they all cause that the market is changing faster than ever. And a lot of companies don't know how fast they're changing. Like the speed of it is intense.
It's tremendous, and then I think then the second point is, so how do you interpret all of these signals that you get? So we have more data than ever, but there's also a lot more noise, right? So we also have to define so what pieces of data are actually relevant for my organization and the way that we go about strategy. And it's very, this day and age, also very simple to get a lot of information or get a lot of data using AI tools. And but if you don't know the context, or you don't have the expertise of what you're actually looking at, that also creates quite a few issues.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and then when we get back to the sort of the leadership challenges, when that is that, well, if you stay sort of within the bounds of sort of myths and beliefs and sort of your over reliance on outdated sources, you see a lot of strategy becoming much more opinion driven, right? So we think that this is the case. Although obviously we are big proponents of using AI in the strategy process, over reliance on strategy or AI tools without while underestimating their limitations is an issue. And all in all, we see a little bit of trust loss in data. So we really are in need of, let's say, a better solution when it comes to using data in the process. So just let's get back to sort of the strategy discipline in that sense. Just given all of these problems that we're encountering, we need, as I said, we need to get better informed to make the right decisions, and we need that data at the right time. But we're also curious about how this plays out for you in the audience. And before we move into, let's say, your specific expertise and the role that you play in the strategy domain, we have a poll which Rob will launch for you. And in that poll, really, we like to get your opinion how you make sure that your strategy development and execution process is infused with the relevant and the real-time data. So hopefully everybody can see it. So what we're looking. We have 5 answer options. They might not all be fitting to your situation, but just pick the one that is closest to where you think your business is at. So first of all, we rely on market research and annual reports. The second one, we use business intelligence dashboards, but maybe sometimes lagging behind, reality. The third one, combining data with external signals in an ad hoc way, maybe. Structured process with real-time data in feeding into your strategy. And the last one, for the really honest people in the audience, we mostly rely on gut feeling experience. So what are we seeing?
I see a good thing that a lot of companies are already looking not only internally but also externally. So that's
yeah. So but there's still 2 people in the audience who really rely on gut feeling and experience, right?
They are
so
the most honest, I think. No.
yeah. The most if we could say this is sort of representative research is around combining internal data with external signals. And maybe I would like to turn it to you, Julia. Is how does that? How do you see that in your practice? How do you see people dealing with data? How do you see that becoming part of their sort of standard decision making process?
Yeah, what we see with a lot of companies that we work with is that everybody has a need to become data driven. We see a lot of companies investing heavily, as we also saw in the poll, in the answers, in dashboarding, in business intelligence teams, even AI tools, maybe at the moment even AI agents. But if we really come to the question and ask companies like, what is the data that you use to really decide on decisions that you have to make? Or what is the data that you're really steering on? Most companies still answer, okay, our most important data is our internal data. And that's our transaction data. That is maybe performance indicators, but it's all internally and it's all historically, because it has already been like it was in it has already been happened. That's really great. This internal data, I'm not saying that it's not good. It's really good. They all have the right intention, but it's mainly really good for optimization. So what is mainly happening with a lot of companies is we call it the self-fulfilling strategy loop.
Right.
And in the short term, this is really good. So you reinforce or you fuel your current strategy with what is going good at the moment. So you currently double down on your success. You keep investing in what is already working. But if you keep doing that, of course, in the short term, you should keep doing that. But in the long term, because you only look at internal data, you will not see developments outside of your organization because you mainly steer on historical internally. So it can become, especially in the long run, it can become a risk, especially for strategy.
Yeah, maybe if I can interrupt. So what we're seeing is that many of our clients are looking for like their growth path isn't really getting them to a position where they want to get, right? So it's basically, like you say, optimizing and doing more of the same, which ultimately produces more of the same results.
Exactly.
Whereas, when we see companies or industries being hit by disruption or disruptive circumstances, their growth path really needs to change in order to reach their ambition levels, right?
Yeah, and it's mainly because, first of all, you, of course, are competing in an overcrowded market with a lot of competitors, and they all have the same assumptions about the market and about their current performance. So if you want to get ahead of your competition, you, of course, need to find these disruptions in the market or see these opportunities in the market sooner than your competitors. But the competition is not even the biggest problem. It's more the speed of change that you already explained in the market. We don't have any idea how fast the market is changing. Like the different segments moves at different speeds. Competitors are gaining market positions that you're not aware of. So everything changes really fast and unevenly. And your internal data rarely visuals it all or shows you what is changing. So that's where really the risk is if you only like constantly refuel your current strategy with your current internal data to optimize it. And we always explain it by using a metaphor. Like my colleague discovered this metaphor, and it's really easy to explain it with this, because we always compare it with driving a car. And if you drive a car, of course, you want to move ahead. Just like with your strategy, you always have like, you need to move forward, you need to grow. That's always your strategy. But if you're driving a car and you only look at your rear view mirrors,
that's dangerous, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can drive without them, but you can't navigate with them alone, because you clearly see what has happened, where you have been, what you all did good, what you didn't do good. But if you navigate with it alone, you can't move forward. So you have to have that visual outside of your organization. And as you mentioned also in the beginning, strategy is all about finding those signals outside of your organization and interpretate them.
Yeah.
And that's always what we say. The perspective matters, because the earlier you find these signals and the earlier you can act upon these signals, these market signals that you find, the cheaper it also gets to act. If you act too late, other competitors are in the same market. Your marketing spend will be higher. Maybe even you have lost market share. It costs, if you react too late, it can cost a lot of money. So if you find these signals first and anticipate on them, you can save also a lot of money.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I agree with you that you approaching it from a cost perspective, but also all of the other elements that put you in a winning position.
Exactly.
As also a perspective that needs a perspective change, right? So if you're listening to you, what you're saying is, so if you're all in the same space, all moving in the same direction, but you get better insight of what's happening, that'll put you in a better winning position, right? So that's
exactly.
so the upside is huge.
Yeah. And what we mainly see, there is so much data available with all kinds of external data that is internal data. So the data availability is not a problem. It's more the insights that you gain from these data that you have, internally, externally combined, and what you do with these insights.
So in your experience and expertise, so what is the difference between a data point and an insight? So when is something an insight?
With insights, you really, for example, a data point can also be big data, like a lot of just to visualize it, take Excel and you have thousands of data points. These are all data points. To really do something with these thousands of data points, you need to get insights out of it. And with these insights, you can really work. You can make it visual. You can get an image out of it. You can really do something useful with these insights. With just data, you can't do that. So you really need to make sure to have the right insights so you can interpret these insights correctly. And that's where, it's quite dangerous, that if you only look at data or the wrong data, that also your interpretation of the market, of your internal performance is not right. So
I'm just looking at some of the comments in the chat, and Martin, I think we've seen your question. We'll answer it in a little bit. But Rolf is saying that the risk is in the quality of data and its interpretation, but also the biases that you have from that interpretation. How do you see that? How do you look at that from your analytical perspective?
The quality of data is really important. As we said, the data availability, that's not a problem. It's really the insights that you get out from. You really have to have reliable data. So if you, for example, work globally, you can't have a small sample size from one country, because in every country the market is moving differently. So you have to have a representative data from your market, but also internally, of course. And also, if you only look backwards and only look at, how we did it a couple of years ago, it went really well. Now in a changed market, it is of course dangerous if you still think the same. So to make that backwards, the interpretation, so like how you did good, you have to face, or you have to look at these external factors to make that interpretation from your backwards performance indicators better. So I hope this answers your question, Ralph.
Yeah, so it's, and also I think it also highlights, as companies are trying to become more data driven, or even need to become more data driven, that it requires a bit of thinking about. So how do we do that? And that's an actual expertise, right? So okay, great. Let's move on to, I think we have another poll, right? Is that correct?
Yes, I'm really curious. A couple of you did mention that you already look at some market signals. And I'm really, curious, how would you, come to your market signals when you describe your organization, or how is it going within your organizations?
Yeah. So again, we have 5 options, mostly looking back, spotting signals but a little bit too late, detecting trends early, solid forward-looking intelligence process, and then again, for the really honest ones, we don't really have a structured approach to market signals. Yeah, I think this, if looking at a little bit of the trend in what's coming in, it's I think it is very close to what you were arguing about, mostly looking back, right? So using
Exactly.
the data to tell us what already happened.
And also that
Yeah.
they spot signals, but they react they see it actually too late. Like
Yeah.
they know that there's something happening, but they don't know for sure, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
great. So yeah, I think this is just a really useful metaphor of this sort of rear view mirror, as you were describing, to look to look at data, and also its its limitations, right? As you were just were just describing. So if we're just building on that metaphor a bit further, I must conclude that if this is an insights problem, then insight itself must change, right? So if we're trying to draw insights from looking in the rearview mirror, then that's not really helpful in that sense, or at least has limitations. So and as we're also seeing in our practices, a lot of organizations use sort of data or that rear view mirror as as output, right? So we're producing a report, we're having this mostly online platform available for people to look at. But as markets obviously move continuously, that's not enough, right? That's going to be a problem in that sense. I think we're also arguing that this must become like infrastructure, right? It has to go from periodic insight to continuous, from reports and dashboards to really decision support, right? The difference between data points and insights. So not occasionally but we have to move continuously.
It really should move from like just reporting insights. So like, okay, this has happened and this is why it happened. It really should move to more and more anticipatory insights.
Right.
So if we see really what the conditions are for these to really become infrastructure, so to have that ongoing insight into the market to make sure that you can make decisions faster and better, it has something to do differently than traditional reporting. So traditional reporting is really about descriptive insights, what happened, why it happened, maybe also interpretive insights. And as I already mentioned, it should be more anticipatory. So what does this imply? So what currently is happening, what does this imply for my next decision? Like, how can I make my next decision better, and even the decision after that? Like what are the how do you call it, the next steps in my decision process, and how can these insights help me with these decision process in my next steps?
Right.
So
okay. So if we then just take it back to let's say our world of the sort of the strategy canvas, we're discussing this because ultimately what we're trying to do is enable better strategic decision making, right? So having that external view available to you from real life data points, but and also want to iterate that the goal is not to just analyze everything, right? There's this in strategy consulting, there's this saying about analysis paralysis, where you can keep staring at data points until the cows come home, and that's not really helpful. So what we're focusing on from let's say the external perspective is really to look at those data points as are relevant for either supporting your core strategic thesis, as well as driving your strategic action plan, right? And again, what we're seeing is that the most important elements here are to really get a grasp around what are the sort of future customer needs, how are they developing, what are the emerging market opportunities, and where do we see structural market shifts. And as you were just describing, everybody sort of being in the same, fishing in the same pond or being in the same direction. It's just not about competing in existing markets, but also looking at where the market is moving next, and that's where of this intelligence is really important for design.
Find these opportunities, find these gaps in the market where you could dive into with your organization.
Okay, so I think we've done enough to make people aware of how important this is. So I really want to sort of go into, let's say, your expertise of how you're enabling, let's say, an ongoing strategy discussion fueled by real-time data. And as we're just talking about, let's say, future customer needs, which really is an area in which a lot of organizations find that there's a sort of almost like a black box, right? So where is the market moving? What, how can we sort of serve the future customer best, as a proxy of whoever serves the customer best is the one winning in the market. Again, people see this mostly as a black box, so everybody has ideas about it, and but once you're able to open that black box, it obviously brings about a lot of opportunities. And can you explain how you at Trendata can help organizations at least make the black box a little bit more transparent, or at least opening it all together?
And maybe start at the beginning, like, why do companies have like a black box of why don't they have the right view of their consumer needs, of their competitive position, or of the opportunities in the market? And that's all because at the moment it's where they look for these insights. As I said, mainly the steering data of companies is internal data, like traditional reporting, revenue growth. Maybe in some cases it's even traditional market research, like survey based. You have a small sample size, you get a report after a couple of months. This is how the market looks like, but that's always like a report from take 6 months ago, for example. So the data that they are using to get an image of their market is, if you look at this purple line, is at the end of the customer journey. Like, if this purple line is the customer journey, it represents the behavior of consumers. And it doesn't matter if it's a consumer that's looking for sneakers, for example, or if it's a company that needs take an industrial vacuum cleaner, for example. So it doesn't matter what kind of consumer it is. They all start with orientating first before they do the transaction.
And is it, sorry to interrupt you, but when we talk about consumers, I think we tend to see that also business buyers and people are, let's say, in a position or decision-making decision when it comes to purchasing for a company.
Exactly.
I think, well, at least my assumption is that a lot of the way that these people are looking for solutions for their businesses is very close to how, I as a consumer might be looking for a pair of sneakers. Is that correct?
Yeah, the market is just a little bit smaller, so it's more a niche market, but they still behave the same way as they do in their
go through the same steps.
They go through the same steps. So they first start with orientating to its solutions, alternatives. So they start with the market demand is forming in this orientation data. And as you can already see, the most companies steer on data that's in the end of the customer journey. And all based on transaction data. And I hope somebody can read it. There's always a lag time. This is already indicated by several research institutions and organizations that did a research about the lag time between orientation. So how long does it take between orientation and transaction? And in all industries combined, or in several industries, it's general between 2 to 6 months. So if you look at these internal data, you're already 2 to 6 months behind where the demand is forming in the market in this orientation data.
Okay, because then orientation data is a proxy for future demand, right?
Exactly.
Is that, okay,
There's already some a lot of indicators that there's a really strong correlation between orientation data and transaction data. So in this orientation data, you really see demand forming, what in the end will be transaction data. So become sales data. Where the blind spot is mostly is where you look in the customer journey for your insights. And now, of course, to solve that problem, or if you really look at, what should these insights deliver? They should move from more reporting, like what has happened and now what is currently happening within your organization, where you have been. It should move to a more strategic, forward-looking view of your market. So you should have a view of this market where the demand is forming, so where the consumer needs are evolving. And that's the shift that you have to make. So if we make it even more practical. What should these insights really need to have?
Mhm.
And because strategy is all about looking forward, like looking in the future, they really need to be forward looking in real time, because
Yeah.
you of course want to see these developments sooner than in your internal data, what is happening in the market, but also they need to be market wide. So
Yeah.
what we see with a lot of companies, that the internal data is like narrow. It's really down to only what you have in your assortment, or only what you are selling, or only where your marketing campaigns are running on.
Yeah.
You have to have that way bigger view of your market, so not that narrow view. And of course, also it should be behavioral. With a lot of survey-based data, if you look at traditional market research, what a lot of companies are doing, you always ask for intentions. Like, should you buy this or should you do this? Like you ask for intentions instead of actually following the behavior of consumers.
Yeah.
So
I think there's an interesting question by Michael in the chat, and he says, "What balance do you see between qualitative insight and quantitative data when using AI to shape strategy?" I think what we're just talking about, and also what you are doing, is you're looking at millions and millions of data points out there, and how can you talk about how you look at sort of the role of qualitative data in that sense?
Yeah, for sure. Like what we do with Trendata is that we really look at let's say quantitative data, and we look at the billions of orientation moments from all internet users, from all consumers worldwide, and they are on search platforms like Google, Bing, social media, I think for all the big social media platforms, but also AI environments. Think about ChatGPT, how important that is becoming. And so we have like a whole view of your total market. If you look at qualitative research, think about surveys or panel data, it's always compared to these billions of all the internet users worldwide, it's always a really small sample size.
Yeah.
So if you make your complete strategy based on a small sample size, or like inform it with just a small sample size, of course it can be biased, or that you just have, maybe the sample size was not big enough. So I'm more a fan of a quantitative research, but you have to be careful with like what is the data that you're using, because all these billions of data points you can't of course analyze manually. With Trendata, we have developed an AI software with which we can analyze all these billion search queries, and of course a lot of these search queries is not relevant to one specific market. So if you are, let's say, in the industrial vacuum cleaning, you don't want to see what the market of sneakers is doing. So we developed an AI software that really only analyzes and gather the insights from your specific market. So what is relevant for your market? And this can be anything. So also substitutes from your products. Just your whole competitive landscape, your whole market is being analyzed.
Okay. Does that also mean that I know if you're sort of segmenting by geography, in your example of the industrial vacuum cleaner, can I look at the Belgian market, or I don't know, the Moldavian market, or what have you?
And that's a really good point, because a lot of companies are operating in multiple countries, and you really don't have an idea how much several countries are different from each other, and also moving at different speeds, where competitors maybe they focus on one specific country and they are rising there, and you don't have an idea of that. So it really is per country, even per region. Let's say just the Netherlands, in the eastern part is different than in the western part of the Netherlands. So on a really small scale, but also on the global scale, there are so many differences in the market. So it's really important to also get that whole market-wide view.
And when you talk about those data points that you're getting, the billions that you just described, what's the source of that? I know you just had that slide about the customer journey, if you will. So where do you get all that information?
What we have like three main sources. That is search engines, what I already mentioned, it's like Google and Bing, but also social media platforms. Think about TikTok, Instagram, where really people get inspired or getting influenced, for example. Even YouTube, how to make my own closet, all kinds of informational needs. And even now on AI environments, we see that AI is so rapidly grown, and a lot of people are orientating, especially in the informational questions and intentions. So really, if they just want to get more information, think about how do I clean something, or really informational needs all on the moves to AI environments.
Do you see, do you see any difference between what you're learning from like traditional search? I would already say traditional,
Yeah.
but search data, social media platforms, and also let's say the LLM AI, the GPT driven type of environment. Is there any discernible difference?
Yeah, there's a lot of difference. Still, search engines is still the main source for orientation data. We thought that AI will completely remove it, but for example, Google has made a lot of developments that they stay on the Google platform and still use Google, the search engine, for the informational questions. But what we really see is that on the search data, so within Google, the searches are closer to transaction, so they know more specifically what they want to have. And for example, with the AI environment what I just mentioned is that it's really about more informational needs. Also comparing products with each other, like what are the features from one product and why is it better than another product. So it's really about comparing and getting all the information. And if you really know, okay, I know what I want to have, then they go again to the search engines. And with social media, it's completely different. That's more about, okay, I don't know what I need. I get inspired, I get influenced, and then I move to either AI or the search engines. So,
okay, yeah. So what you're describing specifically around sort of AI-driven conversations, let's just put it that way, is it also enables you to have this competitive view, right? So so if I'm a producer of a certain product, I can also see, so what am I being compared to, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. What we do with our AI software is that we gather the insights, and it's what we do based on three perspectives. So market-wide, you see what is happening in your total market. So which markets are growing, which markets are declining, which is really find the acceleration markets. Then we have the product perspective. It's really all about the product. What kind of features does the product need to have? What kind of issues do people have with products? Like all about product perspective. And then we have the brand perspective.
Right.
And it's all about how are brands perceived? What is the brand awareness of your brand within certain markets? What is your position compared to your competitors?
Right.
So on these three perspectives, we show you the insights, but also we predict it based on these insights. Together with the University of Twente, we developed a whole forecast model in which we can already forecast the upcoming 12 months with an accuracy of above 85 in the 12 months, 85% in the 12 months. And we are now even working together with them again to make it 90 to 95%. So this orientation data already is for your internal data. So it gives already an earlier indication of what's happening in the market, but with the forecast, you are more than a year ahead of what is happening. So,
Wow, that's really impressive. So just, summarizing a little bit of a summary. So you're using these signals from, let's say, a digital customer journey across search and social media and AI to predict, future customer behavior, 99, even up to 85, 90%. I think that's really, really impressive and very helpful if you're working from your core strategic thesis towards, where am I putting my in which basket am I going to put my eggs when it comes to strategic action planning? I think this all sounds great, but can you put it into the context of maybe a client that you've been working with, at least a real life case?
I've run one case. We can go to it. It is Dunlop, and they are in the protective footwear industry. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the brand, but they manufacture protective footwear. And they really had like a strategic program about, okay, we need to do something with our product development. And they saw in our data in several markets, so not only one country, but it were different European countries, that there was a higher demand or a growing demand for women's protective footwear. So what did they do? They thought, okay, our strategy, we are going to make women protective footwear. But the nice thing, because we have the product perspective and the brand perspective, so you know exactly which competitors are already in that market. Also the strategy can be determined, but also the execution have all the attributes or like all the insights to also execute the strategy. So what did the product development knew exactly what kind of features should the product have? And as they mentioned themselves, it's a quote, we didn't just shrink it and pink it for the woman, but it was really really looked at, okay, what should be the heel height, what was the demand in the market, developed the product line, and they launched it, and they had the best product launch to date, so in the whole history of the company. So that's really shows you how you can become relevant for your target consumer, if you really look at these
So if we put that back into a context of the way that we look at strategy, so Dunlop as a company has identified, a market segment, women in this case, that they're maybe underrepresented in, or at least are not serving as well as they could. And as a growth engine, defined, a protective footwear class specifically aimed at women. And then they used your data, your insights to build a product that really fit that market.
Because it's really good to understand that like the strategy, of course, need to be adjusted or need to be developed, but also the execution should have all the insights to execute that strategy. So that's really something also to think about, that okay, the strategy can be based on external factors, but does the operational team, does they have all the insights to execute it? So it's a really good example with that.
Great. So and very interesting. I think if you just we're just following your the metaphor of sort of driving a car and using data in the rear view mirror, what you're just describing is more sort of moving from a rear view mirror view to a head-up display, right? So getting more focused on it. Can you talk about how that works for you?
Let's take indeed the driving metaphor again. So what you actually need is trend data, or like this external orientation data, is like your head-up display. It gives you direction. Should you move left? Should you move right? And if you combine it together with your rear view mirror, you really have like the optimal insights to really move direction and really develop your strategy. So it's really important that to have that continuous insight into your market to make sure that you are going the right direction, and also gives you more of an insight into which direction you have to move to.
And is this also where, let's say, the AI sort of agentic component of your solution comes into play? Is that in this specific area?
AI, of course, we use AI in several ways. So of course, with like analyzing those billion search queries of like all these orientation moments, but also with forecasting these orientation moments, but also with making it actionable. So we are developing AI agents to already execute something, or like make a use case actionable from our insights. So it can be really on operational level. It really helps take marketing teams make a content planning, for example, because you know exactly what the market is doing and when you start moving into it. So really what is AI doing in our organization? It can help you give direction, so find these signals in those markets and help you decide on these signals. So
so that's really driving to where that insights level, right? So it's much more than just having data as an output, and it's more as an input to your process, right? So and then we talked about how data must become more of the infrastructure of your decision making process, right? So how do you see that happen within organizations?
Within organization, as we all know, search sped up discovery, social sped up influence, AI speeds up decision making. But if you really wanted to have as a supporting function, so then it really should be like visible in your infrastructure. So you should have it accessible at any time if you have to make a decision. And it also creates like 3 leadership capabilities. So first, it reduces strategic blind spot, because you have that full view of your market. You know exactly where some markets are growing or even declining. So you don't have any blind spots anymore. But it also shortens reaction time, because you first, of course, see development sooner, but also you can react to it sooner, because you have all the ingredients to make the decision, and it can increase your allocation decisions. So you know exactly we should more focus with these products or with these segments in these certain regions, and with other segments in other regions. So it's really about allocating decisions and make it more decisions. So it's really really good to have it in your infrastructure.
Yeah, I think this question by Martin has been on the chat for quite a while, because you're describing a lot of benefits about. So what does this, let's inside infrastructure actually deliver you as an organization? And so Martin asks, so despite having a strategy team, the board doesn't see continuously gathering insights as necessary or as a standalone expertise. And what are the best practices to make this clear to the board? So when you're discussing this with your clients, so what is your sort of pitch to the board?
What a lot of boards don't know is the speed of change of markets, because what we see with a lot of markets, that the total market stays often the same, but what is happening within those markets? So take it a level smaller. So are the specific type of products or substitute of the product that are rising? So in your high over data, there's not a lot of things that change, and of course your board looks at that and think like, oh, the market is still going strong, but within that market there are so many things changing, like competitors that are gaining, other competitors are losing. So if you make your board visible of these changes, and that they have to have a look and have to look at these developments in the market and show you these changes that are happening within these markets, then I think the board will really see the need to continuously look at these insights. And also what we see with a lot of companies, if you take it more down to the level, if you see opportunities, it's always really difficult to get your board approve of these new opportunities that you find. And with this, you really have the evidence to go to the board and see, look, these are the developments in the market. That's why we need to move in this direction. So it can go from top, that the strategy has changed and that you move down and the execution should, the operational team should execute it. But it can also be from, okay, we see developments as the operational level, and we want to show the board what is happening, and to with evidence, so that your plan or your opportunity gets approved. So it can be both ways. It's really showing the speed of change.
Okay, so it's much about convincing the board by
also,
And maybe now is a good time to say, or actually offer, that anyone in this webinar can get some of the evidence from you guys, because you offered. Maybe you provide the offer as well.
Everybody within this webinar can contact Rob or me even, and we will provide you with a snapshot of your market in the first meeting. So show you your external markets, show you some signals. So if you really want to see and get that image of your external market, you can.
Martin is already excited. So that's really good. That's really good. So whether you're in the in this case transportation or mobility industry,
everything
or
is possible,
anything can be done. So just let us know, send us drop us a line, or maybe even in the chat here, what industry you're interested in, and we can provide you, or at least Trendata can provide you with a market snapshot. Well, as usual, the time is not our friend, so we have to move. We have to move on. We talked about strategy, the strategy process, the traditional strategy process not really being fitting with today's environment. We talked about the speed of change and how AI and continuous insight can provide, or actually can be helpful in that sense. In our previous webinar, we also argued that the strategy itself must become conversational. So by using the power of AI in that sense, to have an active dialogue with your strategy, and not so much to change your strategy, every time something in the environment changes, but just to calibrate your strategy against what's happening in the industry. And I think this really, what we just talked about, really is a key enabler to have that conversational strategy in place, right? Is that right?
Exactly. It's of course not real to think that you constantly change your long-term strategy. It's more about calibration. Do you need to make some small adjustments, or really see if you are moving in the right direction? So if you have constant, take the driving metaphor again, if you have constant that view and know where you can signal or find these signals in your market, and need if you change the dialogue of your strategy. So what it is, actually, also to make it more practical, it will help you to validate your decision sooner. So are we moving in the right direction? And did we make the right choices? But also to allocate your resources better, but also legitimize. That's what I meant with the board just now. Like, okay, if the board chooses a strategy, you have all the evidence that you can convince your operational team, but also the other way around. You can legitimize why you are making certain choices. So that's really where it is helping.
Yeah, great. So that's fitting with the driving metaphor, moving from the rear view mirror to the head-up display, now maybe even to the LiDAR, really giving us the signals that we need to respond to. Right. So I think that's what we just discussed. So as you know, as we see, is that timing obviously has always been of the essence, but now it's really become a competitive advantage, right? So the sooner you see signals, the better you can get insights. The sooner you can react to them, you can act earlier. So so that I think that LiDAR view is this, I think, is very enticing for a lot of organizations. So let's use the last minute or so to really talk about, so how do we get started, right? We talked about Martin's question about, so how do I convince my management board, how do we move from, let's say more old school traditional way of looking at data towards the LiDAR, or at least the head-up display?
Like what we always say to our clients, like first, as I said, the data is not the problem. Like the data availability, there's so many data, but you have to have a focus. Like you don't want to change your whole organization all at once. That is not doable. So what we always say is really find what are your most important strategic programs at the moment. For example, in the Dunlop case, that was product development. And we're really going to see, okay, what are the key questions that you want to have answers, or what you wanted to have answered sooner if you would do it again, or if you are currently working with it. Then, of course, you're also going to look, okay, which departments are the most important within that strategic program? And then we are going to start from there. And it's really, okay, which insights are we using now? Where can it become really a contribution if you look that externally or get that external insights? So you really define your strategic programs, see which insights is it now, where can it really contribute something, and then really start focusing not just on dashboarding, like really have nice reports again from your market, but really think about what is the decision that I want to make after this, or what I want to make with these insights. And not just constantly fuel the discussions, but maybe even shorten your decisions that you have internally. So
okay, that's it. And a great way to start is to get that market scan from Trendata. So I think we're at the end of our available time for today. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, Julia, for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
I think it was very interesting to have that rear view head-up display LiDAR discussion with you to get to better decision making. Just one last thing I wanted to say. I promised you, we talked about the growth strategy canvas. We have an AI-driven version of that on our website available. We actually just updated it. It's become even better. So even if you've tried it before, you might want to try it again. You can download our resources, obviously, from the website. Also, Rob has now put the link to our AI-powered growth strategy on the screen. So let's make sure that you use that one, and also let us know how you're experiencing that. So we're really interested in your feedback. Don't forget about the free market scan. Don't forget about you can always have a 30-minute free consultation with us on any growth topic. So let's do that as well. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being in the audience. Julia, thanks again for being with us, and we hope to see you again in our next webinar, which we'll announce soon. Have a good day.
Bye.